Hi everybody! So yeah, I know this isn't the normal place that we do these episodes, but it's such a nice day outside I decided to put on my finest distilled from the 1980s apparel, my oh-so-sexy over-the-glasses shades, and going out for a hike. Yeah, it's the Midwest. It gets to be 50 degrees Fahrenheit out here, and it's short and t-shirt weather. Not even joking. So the episode I'm doing this week is sort of a throwback episode. It's actually one from about last year. It's called The Case for the Lone Wolf, and this is actually one of the episodes that was one of my resume ones for Channel Awesome. So I'd like to think it's actually pretty good. But we'll get a fresh episode next week, and we'll do a fresh episode the week after that. Sound good? Okay, it sounds good to me. I'm gonna complete the circuit. I'll see you guys next week. Considering the normal tone of this show, this might seem like an about face, but it really isn't. And if I do my job correctly, you'll see why. So if it pleases the court of public opinion, I would like to now present my case. MMO stands for Massively Multiplayer Online, meaning that there's going to be a lot of people playing the same game you are at the same time you are. MMO games are, at least as geek culture would dictate it anyway, designed to be played in small groups, and in some cases like Defiance, really large groups. Now to this end, one of the most common complaints I hear is when an MMO has a lot of solo content. Many people will openly criticize a game for being, as they put it, a single-player MMO. Star Wars The Old Republic is a great example. It's been widely criticized for being way too solo-friendly. Players will openly whinge about why an MMO has so much solo content, and well, why don't you go play Skyrim if you want to go play a game all by yourself? Irony. These are also the same people that claim to be able to solo the hardest instances in any given game, and they're the first ones to scream at teammates, "Oh my god, you suck! You just uninstall the game and die in a fire, you noob!" Which in itself is actually a pretty compelling case to go lone wolf. Games like League of Legends have a really toxic reputation that precedes it, a reputation that, I might add, they're fighting very hard to shake. For some players, the behavior in this game is enjoyable, and if that's your thing, then there's an entire section of Craigslist tailor-made for you. I really don't... yeah, but most of us don't enjoy that kind of thing. So if the community is toxic and the game is enjoyable, what can a person do to enjoy something they've already bought and paid for? Well, play the game on your own. I think at some level game designers understand this, and they make a lot of their game playable without a group. The games are made with more of a casual player in mind, someone who only wants to pick up the game for maybe half an hour, then log off. Keep in mind that the casual market is larger than the hardcore one. We're just not as vocal. I've made this a basic argument before. I mean, there's people who just can't dedicate like a part-time job type hours to playing a game. Or what about people who work late and get home after midnight, or people who can only play on weekends? Like it or not, MMOs cannot ignore the casual market. It's a pretty large market to ignore, and if you don't believe me, Flappy Bird. Enough said. Now the thing is about random grouping mechanics, it also brings up another thing in all this, and that is that it's a matter of trust. Wait for it. When you join a group mission in an MMO, there's a level of trust you have with your teammates. You trust that everyone is actually willing to work towards the same goal. You trust that everyone knows the basics of what to do. And you also trust that everyone's going to do their part and stick to their role and help the rest of the group along. When you step back and think about it, that's a lot of faith you're placing in a stranger's hands. Assuming that all things are equal, one player can disrupt the enjoyment of just about everyone else in the party by refusal to participate, sabotaging the mission, or just being outright abusive to other players. Oh yeah, a party can kick out that person, but the damage is already done. If you've ever entered a pickup group that's already kicked a person out like this, you know the level of anger that's carried through the rest of the missions. Sorry, we're not all Zen Buddhists, we can't just let it go. Let me be honest, I don't trust you. I don't know you. I don't know your motives. Are you here for the gear drop? Did you wave your DPS around? Or, disrupt the team and some attention getting stunned? Most of the time, you might not even really know what your motives are either, so it's not even really worth asking. It's just this lack of trust that's a large part of how I used to play paintball. I know the team goal's in mind, but I just don't trust you to not get me shot due to your own incompetence, so I'll head out on my own and I'll meet you at the objective. I choose to live or die on my own skill set, not because your overconfidence got me shot. Worthy of note, when I was playing paintball, there was always at least one guy in the parking lot who'd like, oh, I could just pwn everybody here, and more often than not, that was the guy who had all the nice gear, but no skill to back it up. Kinda sounds vaguely familiar, doesn't it? And also kind of on a related note, if you're wanting to play with me in the live stream while you're watching me in the live stream and you talk about how awesome you are, I'm probably not going to invite you to play in the live stream for much the same reason. Look, I just don't trust you. But that's a story for another time. Now, take that drink. But for now, I will say this. What you enjoy in a game and what I enjoy in a game may be totally separate things. You might enjoy beating a game as fast as possible, and I might enjoy exploring a given world. So offering to drag me through that content at breakneck speed to beat the game faster might not be my idea of fun. If I wanted to do that, I'd go ride a roller coaster. Woohoo! In fact, I will argue that when you break it down, the only real difference between an MMO from one to another is a storyline. A storyline that you can't really get into when you're running with a group of people at breakneck speed, but I've already been over this, so I'm not going to rehash it here. But suffice to say that in gaming, exploration is usually best suited to solo-style play.
I would like to make one argument that I think we can all agree with. Except for you in the back. You're just going to disagree with everything that I say out of sheer spite. But when I hear hardcore players criticize newbies, one of the things they always say is L2P, or they say learn your role. But where do you expect them to do this if you're not going to allow them into the raid with you? By practice.
Let's say you wanted to learn a skill. What's the best way to do it? It's by repetition. Someone can give you a head start with some pointers and you can find some written tutorial of some kind, but in the end, you're gonna have to actually do it and teach your body how to do things. You will fail. You will succeed in small steps, and in the end, you'll have to practice until you get it. The same thing applies to video games. The difference is that in video game culture, players seem more happy to remove their own body parts with a rusty butter knife than endure failure or even to see other people fail. They'd rather make you stop playing than watch you not succeed. So, to draw a parallel, the hardcore gamer crowd metaphorically hands newbies 5 chainsaws and tells them to start juggling, all the while heckling them for being a failure and a noob and not doing it right on their first attempt. So, where are you supposed to practice? Target dummies are a start, but since they don't fight back, it's just training yourself to perform ability rotations by muscle memory. Groups will kick players out for being bad players, so learning there is kinda out. So, where do you go to practice?
Solo content. And a lot of the better gaming companies know this, so they make their leveling content basically extended tutorials. And one of the better ones I've ever found in MMO gaming, DC Universe Online.
When you first start playing your character, it's a typical tutorial level, and they're showing you the basics with on-screen prompts like how to attack, introductions to leveling, point spending, and so on. But as you continue through the storyline, you're given access to more of your powers, and you can see how they interact. You're also introduced to concepts of looking for clues like in-world items and exobytes. They also introduce you to later fight mechanics, one element at a time. Your first boss fight is pretty much an unskilled button-mashing slugfest, but as you move on, you learn that you have to block in order to survive and to counter opponents. Then you learn to look for items in the room to help you heal or attack the bad guy. Then you find bosses that have unblockable attacks and you learn how to dodge and counter when the boss is the weakest. Then you're presented with wave-style boss fights, which you actually do see later on in end content. All the while, as you level, you're also being introduced to other aspects of the game as well. Power interactions, stuns and juggles, secondary roles, just to name a few. Also, group content is there, but it's an option. But even here, the on-duty missions are also stepped up in much the same way. Area 51 is kind of a button masher with minimal teamwork required. Gorilla Island really does require you to stay together. Oolong Island is really a gut check. If you don't work together as a team, you won't make it through at all. But each step along the way, you're not as much being handheld as much as you're being taught. You're not being overwhelmed by everything you can do, just given enough so that you can learn one piece at a time. So by the time you've made it to level 30, you should have a good grasp on how the game works.
Let me isolate that concept here, that multiplayer is optional. Now I can already hear people whinging at me about, oh, why are you going to play an MMO if you're not going to socialize and interact with other people? Well, let me remind you of something. MMO stands for Massive Multiplayer Online, not Mandatory Multiplayer Online.
Every single game has single-player end content available. World of Warcraft, ironically, is the worst game for this. I mean, if you get bored, just go to the Outlands and just go for achievements. But nobody complains when they see people running around that content on their own. It's seen as a means to an end. You know, you're grinding for faction rep or grinding for a title, and that's seen as hardcore. Yet, wanting to enjoy a storyline on your own terms, that's somehow seen as bad. My take on it is that the game presents single player as an option, so why criticize someone for taking that option? If a person is happy playing solo missions, why get on their case for it? The game is simply a blank slate. There is no right or wrong way to play it. If the designers put single player content into their game, obviously the designers don't mind people playing their MMO solo on their own time in their own way, so why should you?
I think the answer to this comes from the players themselves, and that is they take it as a personal affront when you don't want to play a game with them. Or, more correctly, when they invite themselves into your game and you say no. Well, if you're not going to be social, then why even bother playing an MMO? Okay, if you're going to be a self-centered, egotistical bastard whose every third sentence is going to be insulting myself or somebody that you're playing with, why are you even playing an MMO? I can't believe you found a roller coaster in Second Life.
That's easy stuff. I was going to show you Space Mountain, but I couldn't show you the track.
Space Mountain? As in Disney?
The mouse will hear you.
Things just got a little more interesting.